Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Roast Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now on Saturday in college basketball, there's a showdown in Lawrence, Kansas, with the Baylor Bears traveling to the Kansas Jayhawks. Who do I think is going to win this Big 12 battle? Let's break it down. Now the Baylor Bears, they're 20-6 and 9-4 in the Big 12 this season, and they are tied for first with the Kansas Jayhawks and the Texas Longhorns atop the Big 12 standings. And Scott Drew's done a fantastic job with the Baylor Bears, as he has done for the last decade. He has been at Baylor for almost 20 years, and he has done a great job building up the Baylor Bears program from a team that used to be one of the worst teams in the conference, but now Baylor is contending for Big 12 titles and have even won a national title under his tenure. And this is just another year that Baylor's playing great basketball. They had a rough skid earlier in the season when they were 10-5, but now they're 20-6 and they're playing much better basketball. And they have losses to Virginia, Marquette, and Texas this year, but Baylor's also beaten UCLA, Gonzaga, TCU, and Kansas, and Baylor has other wins as well that are also really solid. And Baylor is one of the best resumes in college basketball. They don't really have any bad losses, and they have a lot of great wins to boot. And Keontae George, he is a freshman phenom for the Baylor Bears. He's averaging 16.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and 3.1 assists per game. He's going to be a one and done, and he's one of the best freshmen in college basketball, and it's going to be very difficult for Kansas to stop him because Baylor also has two other guards, and Adam Flagler, who's averaging 15.8 points per game and 5 assists, and LJ Cryer, who's averaging 14.9 points per game and 2.1 rebounds per game. Baylor has a trio of guards that are tough to stop, and that is the problem for a lot of teams trying to defend Baylor, because you can't key in on one of them. You have to stop all three, and it's almost impossible to do. The trio combined average over 45 points per game for Baylor, and they're all really good at passing, and they really do a great job to run Baylor's offense. Jalen Bridges, the West Virginia transfer, is averaging 9.7 points per game and 5.8 rebounds per game. He's been a really good forward for Baylor this year. Langston Love's averaging 7 points per game and 2.3 rebounds per game. He hasn't broken out yet like a lot of Baylor Bears fans thought that he would, but he's still playing really well for Baylor. Jonathan Chama has returned, and he's averaging 6.3 points per game and 4.5 rebounds per game. His return is huge for Baylor because he's been injured since the end of last season, and now that he's back, he really provides great defense, and he's a great body in the paint for Baylor. And Flo Thamba is averaging 5.3 points per game and 4.9 rebounds per game. Both of them split the center minutes for Baylor, and overall, Baylor just has a really good team with a lot of contributors to their offense, and they're just a really tough team to stop. And they're averaging 78.8 points per game, and on defense, they're only giving up 69 points per game. Baylor's a really balanced team because they're a really great offensive team, and their defense is one of the better defenses in college basketball. I would say that their offense is a bit better than their defense overall because they have so many weapons on offense, but their defense with the return of Jonathan Chama is getting better, and it will really help them once March Madness comes. Now on the Kansas side, they're 21-5 and 9-4 in the Big 12 this season, and again, they are tied with Baylor and Texas atop the Big 12 standings, so this game is going to be really huge for both teams if they want to take the lead of the Big 12 Conference. And Bill Self is a Hall of Fame coach. He is one of the best coaches in college basketball, probably you could argue the best coach in college basketball now that Roy Williams and Coach K are retired. Bill Self, his career speaks for itself, and he's been a great coach wherever he's been, even at Illinois before he was the Kansas coach, but he's done great things for the Jayhawks program and has kept them as one of the best programs in college basketball. And this season is no exception. They're having another great year, and they have losses to Tennessee, Baylor, and Kansas State this season, and those are not bad losses, but they also have wins over Duke, NC State, Indiana, and Kansas State as well. They beat the Wildcats in the rematch, and Kansas doesn't really have any bad losses, and they have a lot of great wins as well. So both Kansas and Baylor have great resumes. Kansas probably has a little bit better of a resume right now than Baylor because Kansas has one fewer loss, and they have so many great wins in the Big 12 Conference, and Bill Self's team probably has a top 5 resume in college basketball. And Jalen Wilson is the leading scorer for the Jayhawks. He's averaging 20.3 points per game, 8.2 rebounds per game, and 2.6 assists per game. He's a fantastic player that's gotten better year over year for the Jayhawks. He's averaging the most points that he's ever had this season, and if he wasn't an older player, he'd probably be a top 10 draft pick if he was a freshman, but he's still going to get drafted and probably have a really good NBA career. But he's having a great season for the Jayhawks, and he's a big reason that they're 21-5. Grady Dick is a fantastic freshman as well. He's averaging 14.7 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game, and 43% from the three-point line. While Baylor has Keontae George, Grady Dick is no slouch for Kansas either. He's one of the best shooters in college basketball as a freshman. He's going to be a top 15 draft pick because of it. He's playing really well. His defense, sometimes it needs work, but overall, he does play really opportunistic on the defensive side of the ball, and he's a really great cutter on offense, so he's a little bit more than just a shooter, but his three-point shooting is is deadly for Kansas, and he has really helped out their team this year. Kevin McCullough Jr. is averaging 10.8 points per game and 7.4 rebounds per game. He's the Texas Tech transfer, and he's having a great season for the Kansas Jayhawks this year. His defense is elite. He's one of the best defensive players in college basketball, and his offense is pretty steady and solid for Kansas. KJ Adams Jr. is averaging 10.5 points per game and 4.3 rebounds per game. He's playing really well and gotten better as the season's gone along. He is a bit undersized for the center position, but he has played the position pretty well for Kansas this year. DeJuan Harris Jr. is averaging 8 points per game and 6.1 assists per game. He's one of the best passing point guards in college basketball. It probably would help if he was able to score a little bit more, but he doesn't really have to because he's such a great passer and he sets up his teammates so well. Joseph Yesufu is averaging 4 points per game and 1.2 rebounds per game. And Bobby Pettiford Jr. is averaging 2.7 points per game and 1.8 assists per game. Both guards are pretty solid for Kansas off the bench. And Ernest Udeh Jr. is averaging 2 points per game so far this season. It's been getting better and better as the season's gone along. Kansas has a lot of players with junior in their name, so they probably should be called the Kansas Juniors. But besides that point, Kansas has a lot of juniors that are really good at playing basketball, and Jalen Wilson, who's not a junior, is a fantastic basketball player, and overall they just have a really solid team that has a lot of contributors that are really helping out the Jayhawks have a great year. And on offense, they're averaging 76.6 points per game, and on defense, they're giving up 68.2 points per game. So their numbers are really similar to the Baylor Bears. Their offense is really good and one of the best in college basketball. And their defense, while it's not one of the best in college basketball, they have been great on that side of the ball as well, and they've been getting better as the season's gone along. So who do I think is going to win this Big 12 battle? Both teams are going to be fighting for this win because if they can get this win, they will now be the top team in the Big 12 standings and have a really good chance to win the Big 12 regular season title. And the Kansas Jayhawks have the home court advantage because of the fact Kansas already lost at Baylor, so Kansas is probably going to want to return the favor and be able to beat the Baylor Bears at home, especially now that the Big 12 regular season title is on the line. And Bill Self's the Hall of Fame coach, and he's probably the best active coach in college basketball right now, and he's going to have the Kansas Jayhawks playing really hard in this game. Allen Fieldhouse is one of the best home environments in college basketball. The fans are going to be so loud in this game. It's going to be a sold-out crowd. It's going to be very difficult for the Baylor Bears to get things going with that crowd, and I think that Kansas is going to play really hard in this game. They did suffer a loss to TCU earlier in the season, but since that loss, they've been playing much better at home, and Jalen Wilson's been playing excellent basketball, and Grady Dick and Kevin McCullough and KJ Adams and the rest of their team have been playing much better overall, and I think Kansas is going to play really hard in this game, but Baylor's no slouch either. They've been playing way better themselves. They were 10-5 at the beginning of the season, but they've won 10 of their last 11 games, and now they're 20-6. And Scott Drew, if he keeps up his pedigree as a head coach, he's going to be a Hall of Fame coach as well, and he is a fantastic leader of the Baylor Bears. And Keontae George is a great freshman in his own right. Grady Dick might be a better shooter, but Keontae George is a really good driver, and he hits difficult shots, and he could take on the Mike Miles role that TCU had when TCU went to Kansas and won, and be able to hit a lot of difficult shots to be able to pull Baylor to victory. And Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer are great guards as well, and they're going to make it really tough for Kansas to stop them all. And I think Baylor overall has as many contributors on the offensive side of the ball as Kansas does, and I think both teams' defenses will be able to slow down the other team a decent amount in this game, but I think offense will win out, and both teams are going to play really good on offense. But I think the home court advantage for Kansas, and the fact that Bill Self's going to do everything he possibly can to get his team prepared for this win, and the fact the Big 12 title race is on the line. But I'm going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks to beat the Baylor Bears 80-79 in this big Big 12 battle. I think this is going to be a really close contested game, and I think Baylor can pull out this win because Baylor has a lot of talent in their own right. They're probably just as talented as Kansas, and I think that Scott Drew is one of the best head coaches in college basketball as well, and I think that Baylor's going to play really hard in this game on offense and defense to get this win, to take the lead in the Big 12 title race, and they've won a lot of road games in the conference so far this season, so they are really battle tested, and I think that they're going to be able to go into Allen Fieldhouse and not be too phased. But I do think that Kansas is going to play really hard. I think that Bill Self, he's going to have his team ready to go as well, and I think that Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick are going to be firing on all cylinders, and I think that their other players on offense are going to be able to contribute as well, and I think that their guards are going to be able to slow down Keontae George, Adam Flagler, and LJ Cryer to an extent, even though that's a really difficult task. And I think this is going to be a really close contested game that could be one of the best games in college basketball this year. But I'm going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks to beat the Baylor Bears 80-79 in this Big 12 battle. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Kansas or Baylor is going to win this basketball game and why. And I will see you next time.